Blog Talk Radio.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
Everybody, Joseph Gibson podcasting from Greensboro, North Carolina here tonight. We're going to be live here. We're going to have a guest here at 7:30 tonight, Dr. Kaba. We're going to be calling him live as I line up everything. So for after my 2 or 3 minute intro, we'll be live. And if some callers want to call in before we get to my guest, that's fine. The phone number is 657-383-0616. We'll be live here in about, I'd say a couple minutes, about 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so be patient. But if you got something you want to talk about here before I get to my guest, or you can wait until after the guest concludes, we are having Dr. Kaba on the podcast here tonight. So if you've got something to say, you want to join in and talk, or if you want to join the chat room, that's fine. I'm reading some people in the chat room right now, some comments there. Jessica, you're more than welcome to call in if you think that this should be only a white show. You can do that if you want to. I'm not Tony Talk, by the way, so I won't kick you out of my chat room. But let me line up the callers here and line up the guest here. 7:30. So before after I come back here, 7:30, we'll bring my guest on. So give me about 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and we'll take callers if you want to. And then I'll give my special public service announcement. And I'm starting a new group on social media, and I'm sure you're going to want to hear about that. So I'll be back here in about 2 minutes.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations
Okay, everybody. I'm sure everyone's heard that intro plenty of times. If you don't know about the New World Order, George Bush gave his New World Order speech September 11th, 1991, exactly 10 years before they blew up the Twin Towers. But that's a whole other topic, and we've discussed that many times on this show, and you got the idiots out there. They really believe that planes flew into the towers and burned down the buildings there, and they collapsed. It's stupid if you believe that. But, anyway, and then we, went into Afghanistan and, support our troops fighting for our democracy, even though we're not a democracy, we're a republic. But anyway, we did a show the other night with Jane Elliott, actually, and she said Abraham Lincoln was the first black president. That was kind of funny, actually. I looked up Abraham Lincoln's lineage, and and with DNA today, you can do your own research and understand that Abraham Lincoln was not the first black president of the United States. Abraham Lincoln was not black. So I disagree with Jane Elliott on there, so hopefully we'll have her back in the future and we can talk about that. Abraham Lincoln was not black. And Abraham Lincoln, actually, when he chose to free the slaves, he actually, I had the archives, his quotes and speeches, because they're all archived. You can look them up instead of taking selfies on Facebook and Twitter. You can look this stuff up. After all, they call it the information age. He wanted to send the African people back to Africa, but the kings and queens in Africa did not want them, and but that's a whole other topic. Also, we can get into that. But obviously, Jane Elliott hates the fact that she's white, and she feels guilty, and she talks about white privilege. Let's talk about black fragility. We can get into this debate of racial nonsense all we want. But the fact of the matter is that there's one snake controlling you, and it's called the money changers, the Federal Reserve Banking Cartel. That's who controls you. That's who owns you. They bought you the day you were born. Now, we can debate about Adam and Eve, and we can debate whether or not Jesus was black or white or Jewish. We can debate that all you want, but we're not going to get into any conclusion because we've done that on this show many times before. We've had pastors come on, and we had Black Jesus Minister on this podcast, and I had a pastor prove him wrong, prove him wrong, right in their teachings and writings from the Bible. But Abraham Lincoln was not the first black president, and actually Obama was not 100% black either. He was from Kenya, and we all know that his mother was white and his father was black. And we know that Obama was not really a United States citizen. But, that's neither here nor there. That's in the past. And so now we talk about today. And Jane Elliott also, we want to criticize Trump. He's a racist, blah, blah, blah. And they're doing the ICE raids, rounding up people that don't belong in this country. They came into this country illegally. Now, look, every country has borders. Every country has its right to its sovereignty. Simple as that. Now, if you hate America and what it stands for or what it did in the past, you can go someplace else. Go to Venezuela. See how long you'll last there. Go to China. Okay? You want to talk about slaves. Well, I looked up numbers on slaves and the many people of the world that have been enslaved. And actually, the Christians have been persecuted more than any other people throughout the world. That's a fact. That's a fact, if you want to talk about history. All right? Whether you disagree or not. I'm not denying the fact that blacks were enslaved and they were traded, flesh was traded, and you get back to the money changers in the Federal Reserve and get back to how people began trading and bartering with each other since thousands of years ago. And the money changers, you have to understand the origin of money and where it came from and understand gold and silver and coin and how this all came to pass. And The Money Masters is a very good documentary. I know people don't have time to sit down and watch a documentary for 2 hours and 45 minutes. They'd rather watch, the U.S. soccer team with the girl with the purple hair kicking a ball through a net, or they'd rather watch the Dumb Bowl or the NBA Finals, or someone who's 7'3" dunking a ball that's whatnot. You'd rather do that because everyone wants to talk about that, and that's more important. And that's the whole game. The gladiators, the gladiator sports. This is all a big game, folks, and you don't understand the Federal Reserve, and you don't understand. And people call me crazy because they've never heard it before. And when you never heard something before, you automatically put somebody as crazy or stupid, and they don't know what they're talking about because you never heard that before. Now we got people in the chat room that say the Jews with dues brought down the Twin Towers. Jews with dues. Actually, they were Saudi Arabians that were working for the CIA that brought down the Twin Towers, and they had to bring down the Twin Towers because they were the World Trade Centers. And if you understand business bankruptcy, you'd understand that all the bonds in the basement of the World Trade Center throughout the building, and that was the World Trading Post for commodities, which is you're the commodity. The United States was bankrupted at that time, and we get back to George Bush's New World Order speech on September 11th, 1991. It's kind of like last night. The power went out in New York City, and it was all over the corporate news, and it was on the anniversary of the Son of Sam killer of 1977. These things happen for a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason for that. But we can argue and be skeptical and debate with each other about our opinions, but there's only one fact. There's a positive and there's a negative. There's no in-between. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to kill some time before I get to my guest, which is Dr. Kaba, and he's going to be coming on the podcast here at 7:30. I'm told to call him at 7:30, and he'll be available, and he's going to come on to the podcast. But if you have something you want to say or a topic you want to bring up, that's fine. You can. But I also wanted to give my public service message here. I'm starting up a new group, Citizens Boycott. And the first thing we need to boycott is the corporation, not partake in the corporation. Okay, the United States corporation. A lot of people aren't going to understand that. But we also need to address businesses out there that are unfriendly to us, even though we want to spend our little pennies on our little $100 bills, like Mandela-cons like to say. We need to address those places also. And we need to wake people up and understand those are not good places to spend your Federal Reserve notes at. Now, one of the businesses is Wendy's on Battleground Avenue here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Poor customer service, a disgusting place to visit. Walmart on Battleground Avenue. We all know about Walmart. I called them. How may I help you? It says on their smock, and you ask them where the air purifiers are, and they don't know where the hell they are. Because they don't care. They don't care about the customer, and that's why we're losing the small business owner out there, because we have these large corporations. You go to Home Depot, ask them where the nails are. They don't know. I only work there, sir. I don't know. They don't know. And then our third place winner is Luigi's in Summerfield, North Carolina. Luigi's on Highway 150 in Summerfield, North Carolina, and I'm asking my supporters to look that page up and write them a bad review. The owner there is a Nazi socialist. They also conduct. They're conducting criminal business things that I can't get into really. But Luigi's in Summerfield, North Carolina. I'm announcing it on this show right now, and I talk to everybody I know, even at my local grocery store, which I was at a few hours ago. Food Line in Summerfield on Highway 220. I was talking to the clerk there, and he said, my parents eat there. What's wrong with Luigi's? Well, Luigi's is it's owned by a bastard. He's a bastard. And he doesn't support, he just wants to take your money. If you want to pay $50 for a $12 pizza, you go right ahead. And if you want to be a moonbat bubblehead, you go right ahead. But the owner of Luigi's is a scumbag. He's a dirtbag, and he's a racist. He doesn't like black people coming into his restaurant, and the employees there don't like Trump supporters. And look, we're under the Constitution here. We're supposed to be under the Constitution, and this is a public place, not a private club or a private place. And for anyone to be banned from any type of public place for their political opinions or their religious opinions or for what they believe in. That is illegal and that is wrong. Okay? Now, we went through this during the Civil Rights Movement. If you remember, blacks were not allowed to eat at Woolworth in Greensboro, North Carolina, the Woolworth store. And they protested, and eventually they turned it in now to a memorial. But if we remember, they had black and white water fountains back in the day. And, well, a business has a right to serve whoever they want. That's what the law is here in North Carolina. And that's unconstitutional. Okay? We only have one law, and that's the Constitution. Simple as that. So I bring that up about Luigi's, and I ask my supporters to write them a bad review. And if you need more information on that, you can contact me about Luigi's. Luigi's on Highway 150 and Wendy's on Battleground Avenue. Very poor customer service. And all I'm trying to say is we don't need to support these places. Stay away from them. You know what? Don't go out to eat. Stay at home with your family and learn how to cook a meal the right way. You know, don't eat that poison GMO food and the poison that they're feeding you. Okay? Don't do it. You know, don't go out to dinner on a Saturday night. Stay at home with your family. You know, so don't visit Wendy's on Battleground. People here in the Triad, don't do that. And I'm going to be creating a group here, Citizens Boycott. Citizens that are informing people that are misinformed. I'm going to be creating a group. And I want to hear stories from all people from around the country, how they've been mistreated. I mean, have you ever been to Lowe's or Home Depot and you buy a shovel and you stick it in the ground and it snaps in half and you can't return it? You know, have you ever been to one of these places? You know, these corporations like Amazon, we did a show on December 13th in 2018 where we called Amazon, and Alex, the supervisor, openly said, Amazon has so many customers, we really don't care about the individual customer. Is that a place you want to shop? That's a place you want to give your money to? Kind of like voting for these politicians. They don't care about you. They don't. They don't care about you at all. At all. Okay? But yet, you run to the polls. I'm going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for Hillary. Oh, yeah, I'm a Democrat. Yeah, I support the Democrat. Yeah, I support Republicans. The Republicans and Democrats, the same money finances both sides. They're constituents with each other. They are criminals. Criminals. Okay? The Federal Reserve controls and owns the Republican and Democratic Party. Simple as that. And if any politician wants to stand up and audit the Federal Reserve, bam, you're dead. Look at John F. Kennedy, Executive Order 11001. Look it up. I may be wrong on that, actually. I don't have it in front of me. But John F. Kennedy did have an executive order. Yeah. Thank you, people in the chat room. Yeah. The phone number for Luigi's is 336-643-8133. Thank you for that. And if you're a Trump supporter, they'll throw you out. And they also hire illegal immigrants there. And it's a disgusting place to visit. And Wendy's on Battleground Avenue also. I'm not trying to discriminate or single out. We're going to attack all corporations and businesses. And the first corporation we always attack on this show is the United States Corporation. However, you got to remember, if you live in the country, and let's just say hypothetically real quick here before I start getting ready here for my guest, if you live out in the country and there's only one restaurant that serves a specific type of food, whether it's a Chinese restaurant, Italian restaurant, or whatnot, and you're banned and censored from that restaurant because of your political beliefs or your religious beliefs or your skin color or your background or your economic situation that you're in, if you're banned from there, there's something called the Civil Rights Act, okay? There's something called the United States Constitution, and they're violating your constitutional rights. You cannot be banned from any place that's open to the public. You cannot whatsoever. So if you're banned based upon your skin color, I want to hear from you. If you are mistreated based upon your skin color or for the way you believe, whether or not you believe in the matriarch, the Ethiopian Empire, or you believe in, or you're a Christian, or you're a Catholic, That is not what this country was supposed to be about. But yet, we have that happening here today in America. And this is the problem. They have us fighting with each other. Businesses here in North Carolina don't have the right to choose to serve who they want. If you're carrying a gun on your side, oh, we don't allow guns in here. No. We have a constitution. We have a foundation in this country, a foundation in which we're supposed to believe in and stand for. Our founders fought for that idea that all of us one day would enjoy the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I agree with Mandela Khan also. He calls into the show a lot of times. He talks about capitalism based upon imperialism. That's what that is. That's not a capitalist society. That's imperialism. And suppressing those because they're different or they have a different viewpoint. Now, look, if you walk into a restaurant or a bar or a grocery store and you start threatening people and telling, and creating and trying to harm people, of course, you should be removed. Of course. We have to do things lawfully. We can't just have at each other and go crazy. We got to have laws. But we do have a very good law, and that's the Constitution in this country, America. Now, whether you agree with the Constitution or not, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is we have a foundation here that our country was based upon and an idea. Now, during that idea, while those ideas were progressing throughout the years, slavery, women's rights, we have a chance to correct that based upon the Constitution of our country. That's why we fought a civil war, because the states wanted individual rights. They didn't want to be incorporated or by the banking cartels. The South and the North and South Civil War was not fought over slavery. You want to wave the Confederate flag, blah blah blah. That's fine. If you want to adopt a symbol to stand for what you believe in, red, white, and green, whatever, purple, blue, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is we have a document in this country called the Constitution. And if you violate those constitutional rights, you should be able to use the system that we have in place, which should be a de jure system, not a de facto system, to enforce your rights as an individual. And you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You have the right to travel. You have the right, unregulated states. The government has no right to regulate the way you travel. You don't want to wear a seatbelt? That's your business. I choose to wear one. It's safer to wear one. But I don't need a bat faggot pulling me over telling me that you're going to get a ticket and you're going to get fined $189 if you don't wear one. That's not the government's job. That's not the government's job to do that, to police us as a people. The government's job is to make sure that the Constitution is in place and enforce the Constitution and make sure that we do not hurt or harm anyone else and we obey the Constitution. The most important amendment in the Constitution is the First Amendment, the right to express yourself, the right to gather, peacefully, assemble and address and make your grievances known to the people out there that are supposed to be representing you, that were elected, to represent the views of the people. They're not lawmakers. There's no laws to write. We have already a law. It's called the Constitution. You see, this is where we get into the statutory laws, the public laws, public policy, and all that crap. No. All right? It's common sense. If I run through a stop sign at a four-way intersection and I crash my car into a family of four and kill 4 children and kill the wife and mother, obviously I'm guilty. I don't need a bondsman. I don't need a lawyer, but I have a right to a hearing and a fair trial, and I don't need to be held over on a $5 million bond while I bring my case to say, hey, this is what happened. The brakes failed or whatnot. You understand where I'm getting at here, folks? Well, we don't need – this is all a convoluted big mess. That's what this is. And this is what the corporation is doing. And they got us fighting with each other. You're black, you're white, Trump's a racist. But they're distracting you from what's really going on. Right now, they're gearing up to go to war with Iran. For what? Iran has done nothing to America. Why are we going to go kill 100 million Iranians? Why are we going to go bomb them? What have they done to us? Oh, they blew up an oil tanker. And they didn't blow up nothing. Come on, you could put a penny on the ground and they could see it from outer space. You're going to tell me that, they show these videos on the corporate news media, looks like something from the 1930s, the bouncy ball cartoons. It looks like that. Look, just like 9/11, it's all one big fat lie. These people have an agenda. Iran's a sovereign country and they're not a part of the United Nations. So Iran has to be eliminated, and they're going to antagonize them. They're going to blame everything on them. Leave Iran alone. There's no Iranian hiding underneath my bed right now saying I'm going to kill Joe Gibson, okay? Because he's an American or whatnot. Because he's white or black or brown or whatever. There's no Iranian. Just like Osama bin Laden. He wasn't hiding underneath my bed all those years. There's no boogeyman hiding underneath your bed ready to kill you. Simple as that. It's all made up. It's fictional. It's all made up. The problem is you've been watching your fake TV, your flat screen TVs, and your dumb phones too much. Start waking up. Use the internet for information purposes. Wake up. You know what? Start looking up UCC law. Start looking up the law. Start understanding the Constitution. Read the Constitution. Start understanding the times in which you live in today. Stop worrying about the girl with the purple hair who didn't stand up for the national anthem. Who cares? Who cares? She can do whatever she wants to do. She's anti-American. Oh, yeah. Well, I hate you because you support her. Who cares? First of all, a bunch of grown women kicking a ball around into a net. I should not be paying attention to that anyway, with all the problems going around in the world. We should not be paying attention to that anyway. Simple as that. We should be paying attention to our community, our families, our next door neighbor, and paying attention to what's going on around us as individuals, and then we can spread out our message across the country and maybe come together as a people and understand the times in which we live in today. And that's the title of this show. All right, I got about 3 minutes here before I call my guest. Where's my co-host? Is my co-host on here tonight? Where is she at? All right, there she is. All right, well, she's on the top of the screen tonight. Boy, something magic there, maybe. All right, and I see some friends here on the call line here tonight. And the show, we're going to have Dr. Kaba on the podcast here. And I'm going to unmute my co-host because I want her to introduce Dr. Kaba and what he's going to talk about before I call him, because we got 3 minutes before I got to call him. So I'm going to unmute my co-host here, and I want her maybe to talk about the message he's going to bring, or maybe give some background information about Dr. Kaba, and that's what I want to do. And then I'll call Dr. Kaba. So 786, I'm going to unmute you. I hope you're ready. So here you go, my friend. Hello,
yes,
786.
I am. Thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, yes. So love and gratitude, everybody, and thank you for your attention tonight. So like you said, we have Professor Kaba Hiawatha from outside the Bronx, New York, and he's going to be talking about Hidden Colors 5 documentary that will be coming out next month, August. And if for ones who don't know him, he's the narrator of the series, the international hit series, Out of Darkness. And his topics tonight will be on his new book lounge, and he's going to talk, give you some deep but brief in-depth information on Hidden Colors 5. He was also in Hidden Colors 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can find them on YouTube, or you can buy the collection 1 through 4 as well. He's also on Facebook. If you want to look him up real quick to get some more information on him other than what I'm bringing. And he also wrote a book called, what's the name of the book? Sorry. What's the name of the book? I can't even think. I just got a brain freeze right now. Or actually, I didn't write the book down. That's what it is. Okay, so he has a book that came out maybe a few years ago, and you can get the book on Amazon. And it's honoring Professor William Leo Hansberry. So once you go on Amazon, you can just put in the search engine, Professor William Leo Hansberry, and then, the book will come up. And this book is in reference from 1894 to 1963, and it's an intellectual libation for the architect of Americans African Study Department. He also speaks on the hidden history of Haiti, 1803 to 1804. He was also a part of that documentary as well, if anyone's familiar with the Haitian Revolution. And the person who's filmed and founded and produced these hidden colors and the hidden history of Haiti is a brother named Tariq Rashid, and he can also be found on social media, Facebook and YouTube. He was also on the Breakfast Club, Power 105.1 FM. And the title of Hidden Colors 5 that Professor Kaba is going to speak on is called The Art of Black Warfare. And you can find the official trailer on YouTube as well. It's a 2-minute, 35-second footage. So you can also look that up real quick, too, if you want right now, or you can just wait until the professor comes on and talks about that. So like I said, he's going to, get deep but brief of the content of the documentary, and the people that's going to be speaking in the documentaries, a lot of them speaking, but I'll just give you like maybe 7 or 8 of them that ones may be familiar with, like Chuck D from Public Enemy, Professor James Smalls, David Banner, Ice-T, the Black martial artist Michael J. White, Brother Polite, Brother Jabari, he's a Kemetic priest, Sister Queen Afua, and many more is going to be in this Hidden Colors 5 documentary. So it's 7:31 now. I don't want to say too much.
Let me call him and bring him on, and I'll when he answers the phone, you go ahead and talk to him and bring him on to the podcast. How's that sound? Okay. So let me call him right now, and we'll bring him on, and we will take live callers and questions and comments here towards the end of the podcast. So everyone, turn off your dumb phones for a little while and pay attention. So, all right, here we go. Let's give Dr. Kaba a call.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, greetings, Dr. Kaba. How you doing? Professor Kaba, Dr. Kaba.
I'm doing excellent. How you doing?
I'm doing great, too. I can't complain. Just trying to keep it positive.
That's what we got to do.
Yeah, so it's an honor to have you on air. And the last time we spoke was back in March when you was at the African American Research Library doing your lecture there. And it was, good to meet you in person because it's always behind the phone or behind the screen. So when you get to meet a person in real life, in real time, that's always a pleasure too. And I still have your incense I bought from you. I'm still burning them in the house. I might need to make a new order.
Well, my sister. Well, hold on to that incense because I'm not making incense anymore. I'm making oil, but I'm not making the incense anymore. So hold on to that incense and burn it as sparingly as you can because that's the last of it because it took so much time to do. So.
Oh my goodness, I have like 4 left.
That's okay. Well, what I do now is I have an electric oil burner.
Mm-hmm.
that I use now to burn my oil.
Okay. So I'll buy some oil instead.
Yeah, and also the electric oil burner, for me, I like it better.
Me too. It really lights up the room.
Yeah, and it's cleaner also, because when I started making oil, are we on the air, by the way?
Yeah,
yes, we are.
Yes, we're on.
I know we're getting off track. I understand. I know we're off track.
Yeah, this is Joe Gibson on Understanding the Times in which you live in today. I wanted my co-host here to introduce you to the podcast. So we are live on the air. So you got the platform here.
All right. So let me introduce
all right. That's fantastic. At first, I thought this was just a pre-call to say hello and to get ready for the show. I said, but then all of a sudden I began to realize, well, maybe we're on the show right now.
Yeah, we are. Well, at least they know.
Fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I just look forward to this and having a great conversation. Thank you, my brother Gibson, for extending your program to the work that we're doing.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
Yeah, so we have Professor Kaba Hiawatha on the line calling from, are you still in Georgia or you're in the Bronx now?
No, I'm still in the Bronx. Bronx is my base.
Oh, okay. So he's in New York, Bronx, New York, and he's going to tell us about his new book, Lounge, and then the other book that he wrote some years ago, honoring Professor William Leo Hansberry. I think some people should get that book as well. And then he's going to talk about Hidden Colors 5 and his part in it, and maybe if you want to give him a rundown from 1 to 5, I don't know how you want to do that, but because some people have even heard of it before, and I think give them like an idea of what each part consists of, and then they'll know, they'll have a great expectation when they get to see it, you know.
Okay, that's fine. What was interesting is that back in the spring of 2010, I got a call from a brother named Ola. And Ola said to me that he had been following my work along with a friend of his by the name of Tariq Nasheed, and that they were interested in doing a documentary, and they wanted to know if I'd be interested in participating in it. And I said, sure, because I've always participated in so many different things that has come from the community. And so I said, sure, just give me a call and we'll arrange it. And he said to me that he'd contact me. So he contacted me, and we arranged for him, Tariq Nasheed and his film crew, to come to a class I was teaching in Harlem. And that's where Hidden Colors 1 was filmed. And they explained to me, and the important thing to understand, I think, is what Tariq Nasheed said in the beginning of Hidden Colors 1. And that was that he was watching a history documentary and that he did not see anybody of African descent. And he said he knew that Africans had a great history, and he wanted to understand why Africans were not in this historical documentary, whatever it was. And so he decided that he was going to do something about it. And that came out of Hidden Colors 1. So when you see Hidden Colors 1, it's a story of the hidden history of African people in world history. And so, that premiered in April of 2011. Okay, here we come around. I get a call from Tariq. He said, you know something? It was so nice, we're going to do it twice. I said, okay. And so he said he wanted to do something, and the focus this time would be on melanin with other topic areas, but he was going to talk about melanin. And so I said, sure, I'm with you. So we filmed Hidden Colors 2, and that dealt with the same concept, African history, but it really focused, the theme was on melanin and the role that melanin played. Okay, that's good. Okay, then a couple of years later, I get another call. He said, you know something? We're going to do it thrice. I said, okay, brother, I'm with you. And that dealt with the rules of racism. And so Hidden Colors 3 deals with the rules of racism to understand from our perspective, African perspective, African-American perspective. You could even extend it out to the African diaspora to understand the role that racism has played in history.
Right.
Okay? We did number 3. All of a sudden now, brothers say he's going to do number 4. And this one deals with the religion of white supremacy. And again, the Hidden Colors saga, the series is getting worldwide acclaim. It's on Amazon. It's getting recognition for the #1 documentary worldwide, and so things are growing. The next one, he didn't call Hidden Colors, which was interesting. He called it the 1804, the Hidden History of the Haitian Revolution. And this one expanded the concept out to really, for us as an African people, to understand exactly what happened on that island during the Haitian Revolution. And it was done phenomenally as it relates to what actually happened, the leaders and the community and the role that women played in the Haitian Revolution. Because so many times the role that women have played in our struggle worldwide has always been diminished. And as I said in the documentary, that if you have a revolution and women are not part of it, you ain't got a revolution. You got a fist fight. Because women, when women are involved, now you got a revolution. If women ain't involved, ain't nothing but a street brawl. And so the role of women played a very important role. Okay, now let's come up to the future now, because August 1st and August 2nd of this year, next month, Hidden Colors 5. Hidden Colors 5's theme is the art of black warfare. And you've got some phenomenal folk in this one. You've got Sister Shahrazad Ali, who was in Hidden Colors 1. You've got Michael Jai White, the actor and martial artist. You've got Ice-T, the actor and rap artist. Again, you've got David Banner coming back to do his thing. I'll be a part of this one also. And so there's really some phenomenal things happening. Riza Islam is going to be in this one. Dame Dash is in this one. You've got a lot of great folk in this one, and it's premiering this August. And so basically what I've just given you in give or take about 9 or 10 minutes is the saga of the Hidden Colors story. And I think that Tariq Nasheed and Flex Entertainment have done a really phenomenal job. And they have related to our community in ways that our community has not been engaged in the African-American story, the Caribbean story of the role that we've played in world history and in regional history.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Ice-T being a part of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody got a story to tell. Everybody's got a part of this, and it's drawing from various parts of our community, and it should be engaging, and I know it's going to be interesting. I know the role that I played. I know the questions that they asked me, and I can only imagine how phenomenal it's going to be when it actually premieres, and also when the DVD is released for our community to be able to bring it into their homes and to show it to their families. It's something that we need to see. It's something we need to understand.
Mm-hmm. So would you like me to play that trailer?
Absolutely. I'll follow your lead.
Okay. You don't mind, do you, Gibson?
No, go ahead. And then I would like to ask a couple questions, especially since we had Jane Elliott on the last show. I wanted to ask some questions to the doctor, if he, about Hugh Thomas and the slave trade and Robin Blackburn's, the making of the New World Slavery, if he's familiar with that by any chance, and the origins of the African slave trade, because a lot of people are attacking Christians and stuff like that about the slave trade. But go ahead and play the trailer. Maybe we can get in a little depth here about the conversation here, and and have an intellectual discussion here and understand history as a whole and together, come to a common denomination or understanding of why the African people have been treated the way they were and what has happened throughout history.
Okay, I'll play it now.
Voodoo Free Movies and TV. Look at what you're missing.
When somebody else knows more about yourself than you know yourself, then you have volunteer slavery all over again.
The real reason why I believe black people truly won't fight back with white folks is because of religion. In our mind, we keep forgiving white people because in our head, subliminally, we see Jesus.
The thing about being conscious and truthful is you got to be tough. You got to be ready to get fired because people are always going to try to take advantage of you. Because if you're winning, they're losing, and those guys cheat, you don't. So you got to be. They got to know not to play with you. They got to know you can't really think that you're just going to have an opinion without some muscle.
The entire civilization is built on keeping the black man and the black woman apart.
Right now, every white population in the world is that minded person. Every single one. All right. What are they going to do then? They need our body.
In the 60s, they banned martial arts as registration of people's hands and feet because
it was something they didn't quite understand. And plus, when people came from the armed forces and started using crack, it was dangerous at that time.
You know, we're suffering from like high blood pressure and swollen ankles and everything. Like what fight are we gonna take on? People be like, yo, Black Power, put your boots on this white man's neck. And I'd be like, man, you can't even strap your boots because your ankles are swollen. You can't even wear boots.
In neighborhoods that are of a more upscale, financially affluent society, white, Jewish, etc., they are infused with fertility clinics. While in our societies, the ones that do not have that elevated level of economics, black and brown, impoverished communities, have abortion clinics.
Processed foods have to be preserved, and you only preserve that which is dead.
The fear of the little white girl taking down her new kids on the block poster and putting EVE up over her bedroom set was something that had to be addressed. Africans have defended territory, defended ideals, and defended themselves consistently over thousands of years, including in the United States.
To be a successful colonizer, you not only colonize and you dominate the people physically, you have to dominate them psychologically.
The first revolution Gil Scott Heron tells us is the revolution in the mind.
So we're planning a wedding.
Yeah, I mean, we're figuring it out. Sorry about that. The commercial got me before I could stop it. So, yes, listeners, that's basically a brief blueprint of what Hidden Colors 5 will be next month. So, Professor Kaba, I don't know if you want to answer the questions that Gibson was asking you before I played the footage.
Well, before I'd just like to read something from my notes and doing my research. You know, the origins of the African slave trade, and I know Mandelacon's on the line, and he always says the European invaders and stuff like that. But that that doesn't reflect on what's happening today. I understand that, but we'll talk about history a little bit here. You know, in 1807, Britain outlawed slavery. In 1820, the king of the African kingdom of Ashanti inquired why the Christians did not want to trade slaves with him anymore, since they worship the same God as the Muslims, and the Muslims were continuing this the trade like before. The civil rights movement of the 1960s actually have left many people with the belief that the slave trade was exclusively a European USA phenomenon, and only evil white people were to blame for it. This is a simplistic scenario that hardly reflects the facts. There's thousands of records and transactions that they're still available today on a CD-ROM prepared. You can go to Harvard University and several other comprehensive books that have been published recently on the origins of modern slavery. One of them is Hugh Thomas, The Slave Trade, and Robin Blackburn's The Making of the New World Slavery. That shed new light on centuries of slave trading. What these records show is that the modern slave trade flourished in the early Middle Ages as early as 869, especially between Muslim traders and Western African kingdoms. The moralist and the most important aspect of that trade should be that Muslims were selling goods to the African kingdoms, and the African kingdoms were paying with their own people. In most instances, no violence was necessary to obtain those slaves. Contrary to the legends and and the novels and the Hollywood movies, that the white traders did not need to savagely kill entire tribes in order to extract or exact their tribute and slaves. All they needed to do is bring goods that appealed to the kings of those tribes. The kings would gladly sell their own subjects, and we talk about subjects because we're all subjects today to the Federal Reserve banking cartel, and I talk about that a lot on this show. The kings would gladly sell their own subjects, of course. This neither condones the white traders, of course, it doesn't, I'm not saying it condones the white traders who bought the slaves, nor denny that many white traders still committed atrocities to maximize their business. This explains what I'm trying to do is this explains why slavery became black ancient slavery under the Roman Empire would not discriminate slaves. Actually, slaves were both white and black. So were emperors and popes in the Middle Ages. All European countries outlawed slavery, of course, hypocritically. Christian nations retained countless civilized ways to enslave their citizens, but that's a whole different story. Whereas the African kingdoms happily continued in their trade. Therefore, only colored people could be slaves, and that is how the stereotype for African American slavery was born. It was not based on ancestral hatred of blacks by whites, but simply on the fact that blacks were the only ones selling slaves, and they were selling people of their own race. To the precise Christians who were selling Muslim slaves captured in war, and Muslims were selling Christian slaves captured in war. But neither the Christians of Europe nor the Muslims of Africa and the Middle East were selling their own people. Then the Muslim trade of the African slaves declined rapidly when Arab domination was reduced by the emerging European powers. What all I'm trying to say is that a lot of people blame the Christians for the slave trade, and they blame the Europeans, when in fact you can go to the archives and look up these records of the slaves. And like I said, this is wrong. I mean, it's a default of the human race and what our mistakes and what the human race has done in the past. But you can't blame just the European Christians for the slave trade. That's what I'm trying to really say, because a lot of the African colonies, like Sao Tome and Madeira, they were trading their own people for goods and services, and trading their own people and capturing their own people and selling them. And today there are a lot of people today that are enslaved today throughout the world. And slavery is really not just about black. It's about all people of the human race that are enslaved. And I believe it's an economic situation where the central bankers are enslaving us. It's not based solely upon racial lines, or what I'm saying. Now, I'm not trying to deny the fact that that blacks were enslaved and suffered horrific atrocities, especially African American women, in America. But if we get to the history of everything and understand history of the origin of slavery, that's my point, is how can we stop this today and wake up our communities and our people today and understand the times in which we live in today and stop this nonsense, because we have slaves today that of all different races and colors. How do we just not focus on just the black community, which I'm the first to admit, and I've said that the black community, we know the drugs are sold and brought in by the government, the CIA. I've covered that on this show many times. And most abortion clinics are in poor black neighborhoods. We know that. These are facts. But how do we overcome what's happening today with the doctor on the phone line today? What's the solution? How do we overcome the modern day slave trade today?
One of the first things that we have to do when we're talking of this issue is be very clear on what it is that we're saying. And it's important for us to understand that there had never been, and there is not even to this day. This is why I have a problem with the word slavery, which really comes from Europe. It comes from the word Slav, Yugoslavian or Czechoslovakian. And it is a word because the Europeans were Europe's first enslaved people. Now, here's where we have to be very clear on what we're saying. Never in the history, see, I have to use the word chattel slavery. We're using the word slavery too freely, because what is happening today is not slavery. It's inhumane. It is horrible. It is unacceptable. But it is not chattel slavery. The only time the concept of slavery, as we know it, it's a legal system Today's enslavement is horrible, but it's not legal. In fact, it's illegal. The enslavement in Africa, even amongst the Muslims, as horrible as it was, is very much like today's drug trade. It was illegal. It wasn't part of the system. It wasn't until European, Christians in particular, made it so that if you were an African, you were not a human being. And children born to you while you were enslaved were born enslaved also. And there was no way that you could legally buy your way out of your enslavement. That's the chattel slavery that I'm looking at. That is separate from what we're talking about today. And it's important that we understand the difference, because what we're experiencing today in the United States of America is exactly a result of chattel slavery, because between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, with due respect to Martin Luther King and all of his great success, it was Malcolm that had his finger on the pulse of the problem. Malcolm said it was a human rights problem. Martin Luther King said it was a civil rights program. And what we're looking at today, because all of the advances in the civil rights movement is now being turned back. So it is obvious that it's a human problem. And chattel slavery. See, slavery can't be used as a word. And I'm uncomfortable with that, because that's when you can now talk about what's going on in North Africa, now what's going on in other parts of the world is slavery. That's not slavery. You can't just use the word slavery. You have to use the word chattel slavery, because that's the legal system that was put in place that to this very day, along with all of the other legal results that enslaved African people, continue to this day in the legal system. And this is what people use to be able to oppress African peoples and African American peoples in today's world, is the very laws that were created by European Christians. What happened with Islam, Dr. John Henrik Clarke often teaches us that it was the Eurasian Muslims that went into East Africa that really began to dismantle African towns and cities and states, that allowed the European to be able to come in later on with the Portuguese and with the Spaniards and with all of the others that would come in. And so what I think is very important for us to understand as it relates to today's world is that the very thing that is making what's happening on the border, our southern border, happen today. And this is what I often look at. What I am looking at, when you put men in cages, when you put women and children in cages, although it is not legal, because of the nature of the struggle of African American people that defeated that concept, that is still the remnant of what is happening in the world. And if you listen to what people who are following this present administration is saying, they're saying the exact same thing, even to the point where the Attorney General would actually quote the biblical verse that enslaved African people to give the right to happen to peoples that are coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, coming up to the country. He used the same biblical term as they did back then to enslave African people. It literally was a biblical term that he used. And so as we're speaking about the enslavement of African people, let us be clear. I am about a legal system. I am about a legal system that dehumanized, that made Africans be counted with the sheep and with the cows and with the horses. The 3/5 clause did not make African people 3/5 of a human being. That had to do with the voting rights of Europeans because of land ownership and possession. The 3/5 clause was for Europeans, not for Africans. Because for every 5 Africans you had 3 votes. That's what the 3/5 clause dealt with. It didn't deal with making the African was dehumanized. The African was a piece of property. And it is that concept that we have to deal with today, because that's exactly what is allowing what's happening on the southern border to happen. And so when we're talking about how can we eradicate this, let's be clear on what it is that we're talking about and not get it twisted. Slavery cannot be separated from chattel slavery. What happened in Africa, no matter how many African chiefs or kings or whatever, so by the way, we got some of them black folks selling each other out today. So that's nothing new. But the bottom line that I am saying is that we have to understand that these Africans who would even sell their own people to the Europeans did not view the system and did not understand the system that the European had developed that came out of the feudal system in Europe. It didn't exist. It didn't exist amongst the Muslims. You were a human being. As horrible as you were treated, just like today, down on the southern border, as horrible as you are treated, as inhumanely as you are treated, you are still viewed as a human being. Your children are still human beings, and if you give birth to human beings, your children are born as human beings, and they're born free. There's a difference in the conversation, and it's important that we don't get it twisted and that we get it very straightforward as we're moving forward in this conversation. I understand where this conversation is going. Let me warn you, you better be ready for what I'm going to tell you. But you go ahead.
No, I understand what you're saying, but so what should...
No, you don't understand what I'm saying, but by the end of this conversation, you are going to understand what I'm saying.
Okay, so therefore America has no right to protect its border or
you didn't hear me say that.
China illegally. You know where I'd end up? I'd end up in a prison camp, and I'd be doing 10 years of
first of all, the original illegal aliens are Europeans. So if you want to talk about go back where you came from, tell Europeans go back to Europe. You're not indigenous to this land. This is like somebody that comes into your house and pushes you outside into your backyard. And then they take over your house, and then all of a sudden, when you're trying to get back into your house, all of a sudden they're telling you, this ain't your house no more. The people that are in the southern border are the original people that were on this land before Europeans came here, sick, tired, nasty, dirty. The Europeans were escaping the same things that the people that are original to this part of the world.
Hang on. So if the Europeans were escaping the same thing, shouldn't they be entitled to asylum in America then and be welcomed? Because if the people on the southern
not
border,
if you're going to kill the indigenous people, not if you're going to steal the land, not if you are going to force your way of life on them. No, you're not allowed here. But if you want to come here in peace, because for me, if you're talking about English, this is America, speak English, I don't hear no European speaking Cherokee or Apache. You brought a language. America is not an English language.
They originated from the Aztecs. The Aztecs enslaved the Indians, and the Indians.
First of all, the people that were here originally were African. The Paleo-Americans were African. The people that you're dealing with today are 5 different migrations that came to this part of the world. Let's be clear on the history. This is why Hidden Colors was made, to get clear on the history. So let's understand what we're talking about. This earth belongs to us all. I don't care where you come from. You have every right to live any place in this world. But when you come to this country and you murder and create mayhem amongst the original people on this planet, you have no right to be here anymore. And of all the people to be talking about who don't belong here, the original illegal aliens were the Europeans that came here illegally, because nobody allowed you here. You forced yourself You are not a European explorer. You're a European invader, and you brought mayhem and death to the original people in this land. Had you come with respect, had you come with an open arm to accept and to embrace the love that the indigenous people had for you, that would have been one thing. But you created mayhem. You went to Australia. You went to India. Everywhere that the European has gone, they have brought mayhem and murder with them. This is history. Look at it for what it is. If you want to know what the problem is, the black folk don't have a problem. Europeans have a problem. And your problem is that you are on an extinction protocol. Your time is up. And you're upset. That's why you hear people say, we're not going to be replaced. We're not going. Oh, you don't have to be replaced. You ain't going to be here in 1,000 years.
Well, I don't know what. Well, we're gonna. I don't think we'll be here in the next 10 years, but we can get into a religious discussion if you want to. But would you be interested?
I'm not talking about religion. I didn't say anything about religion. You mentioned religion.
Well,
I didn't mention religion. I mentioned it only because. Hey, well, you can do whatever you want with your Bible. Don't ask me. I'll tell you what you can do with your Bible, but I'm gonna leave that alone for right now.
It gives me a blueprint of what's going to happen. But would you be interested in taking some callers? We got a lot of people on the phone line here, so would you be interested in taking some callers?
Bring them on.
Okay. All right. And look, as callers, I'm going to let you know right now, if you're going to insult the guest, if you have a question, that's great. But my finger is on the mute button. We're not going to disrespect the guests here tonight. So I just want to let everyone know.
They can do what they want to do. I can handle them.
Yeah, well, we don't want to take away. We don't want to bring negative energy to the podcast here.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you, but I'm ready for them. So just bring them on.
Oh, I know you are.
Sure.
All right, private caller. First private caller. You've been waiting 28 minutes. Go ahead. You got a question for Dr. Kaba tonight. Go ahead, private caller.
Hello.
You're unmuted. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have a question for Dr. Kaba? Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Kaba. I'd like to know if you think there's a resemblance.
If there's a what?
If there's a resemblance.
What is that? A resemblance?
Yeah, between your pubes and the heads on your hair.
All right.
Okay.
Obviously,
that's good.
All right.
Yeah, there is.
Get rid of him. Yeah, get rid of him.
Yeah, there is.
We'll get rid of him. I apologize for that.
Hey, listen, yo.
Do live radio. Yeah.
Bring them on. Bring them on. Bring them all on. Ain't nothing. I got what it takes to take what they got. Bring them on.
I know. And you see, that's the thing. You can't ask this man who's obviously very well informed, who has a lot of passion, who wants to have a discussion with people live on this platform, and we're going to get trolls on. Shame on you.
That's
Shame
okay.
on you, for real. You know? All right.
It's all good.
I got a caller here who I do recognize, actually, and then I got 302, 203. Go ahead, 203. Go ahead. Area code 203 from the state of Connecticut. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Bit Banker from Connecticut. Excuse me. Dr. Kaba, I may be wrong, but I did a little research before the show, and I thought you were a pain doctor. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but is that correct?
A pain doctor?
Yeah, I looked it up out of Florida. Same name as yours. I could be wrong.
When you say pain doctor, you talking about like a medical doctor?
Exactly, yeah.
No, I'm an educator. I'm an educator, historian, and I have spent my life educating our children in New York and traveled and worked with teachers. That's my background.
I understand that, and this doctor, too, that I was referring to, he actually came from New York as well, so I thought you were one and the same. But my apologies, and I'll listen to the rest of the call. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
All right, thank you, Connecticut. Thank you so much. I'll mute your number. Go ahead. Let's go to another private caller that's been waiting, and then Mandela Khan wants to come on, my friend Mandela Khan. So first private caller, go ahead. Next private caller. You have a question for Dr. Kaba, if you want to, or a comment even. That's fine, as long as you're polite and, you want to make your viewpoint. That's okay. Go ahead, private caller.
Good evening, Dr. Kaba and Joseph Gibson and anyone else that's on this panel.
Good evening.
Dr. Kaba, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I didn't address you. I just got on a little bit late. Dr. Kaba, you bring up very good points. A lot of them, you hit the nail right on the head. What I will tell you is this. On the next show, if you are not on, I guarantee you that Joseph Gibson is going to talk about how he handled you, how he put you in your place, and how incorrect you were. Because he has guessed.
All right.
Yes. Well, let me finish. Because that is what he does. That is exactly what he does. Oh, I sure told them they were wrong. When he has the guests or people there in front of him and he does not have a rebuttal, he just, okay. But believe you me, when you are gone, and he's going to read a little book or...
I'm sure Dr. Kaba really isn't going to lose any sleep overnight, what Joe Gibson has to say.
Let me finish, Joseph
If you have a
Gibson.
question
Why do you
or comment
do this?
about what Dr. Kaba has said tonight?
I am talking to Dr. Kaba and letting him know what a good job he's doing and to be warned about what you are going to say about him because he has brought a lot to the table.
Thank
he's been
you.
very
I
informative.
appreciate that. He's warned. He's been warned. That's good. I'm sure he's not going to lose any sleep over it. All right, Mandela Khan. Go ahead. You're next, Mandela Khan. Welcome to the podcast, Mandela Khan. I know you've been waiting a while.
All right now. Much love, much respect to everyone there. I'm representative of the Ethiopian matriarch Total Recall to recall everything stolen, the real stolen legacy by the Masonic Order of the Patriarch. And I'd like to congratulate the good doctor for putting forth what was in the understand the times in which we live. Everyone's been well perused about the illegal alien European invader immigrants. And much opposition. Much opposition. I got much opposition from the producer, Joe Gibson, about me saying those words. However, nothing could be further from the truth because there was an old world that existed before the new kids on the block, the new world order that Joe Gibson liked to bring up with the Constitution and the Bible, or could I say this thing called the New World. There's no such thing as a new world. The world is as old as anything on from the universe. So this is where we're in total recall and where everything has to come back to fruition because this thing called slavery. And I want to lay this out clear, crystal clear. Joe Gibson likes to talk about the Federal Reserve, the Constitution, such. But the consequence of antebellum slavery, there was no IMF, the ignorant motherfuckers. There was no World Bank. There was no Federal Reserve. See, this laid the basis to the parasitic relationship where Europe could stop their genocide on each other because the commodities, Black Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, the commodities only exist in Africa, Asia, South and Central America. There are no commodities in Europe, if you understand the leprechauns, the pot of gold. Nah, that's the twa. Nah, that's the real gold standard because there is no diamonds, there's no rubies, no bauxite, plutonium, such. So the world economy is based on capitalism, based on imperialism, started by white power. And if anybody try to dance with that, then we're going to have a real verbal battle. And we'll turn into a physical because we're here to destroy what is by establishing what must be. And what must be is that the birthrights of the African indigenous people to where we must move on the planet Earth unhindered, unfettered, with no visa, green card, passport, or Doctors Without Borders. We are people without borders. And those new world order people, those new kids on the block, those people who say they discovered the new world, they have no jurisdiction in our sector as we go forth from here. I don't know who did business to 40 acres and a mule. I don't know who's putting reparations on the table, knowing damn well divided we stand, together we all fall. So if we're not going to come together, principle as a quid pro quo to get our birthrights back, this is why we're going to have these serious discussions. So I appreciate Dr. Kaba, I appreciate Sister Nagis, and everyone else who's joining in on Joe Gibson's platform of understanding the times in which we live. Even though we're in total opposition, this is an extraordinary thing because on very, very many so-called black DTRs, black talk radios, on so many black or even conscious people, these kinds of discussions, we can only discuss them as relates to the antagonisms of white power. When it comes to how are we going to recall, reclaim, reacquire that which we already was birthed into, that's where we are right now. So I appreciate you there, good doctor and good sister, Queen Supreme, for putting this format together. And you, even Joe Gibson.
Appreciate you too, Mandela Khan. Always love.
Say that again?
I said I appreciate you too. It's always love.
Well, that's beautiful. And I also appreciate Joe Gibson because, again, he waves the Confederate flag, and we hear people who come behind them. We'll hear people come behind them that quote the scripture, they quote the Bible, they quote the Constitution, then they say the word nigger, nigger, nigger in the same breath, right? But I have never, after 3 years, called any of Joe Gibson's cohorts a cracker, a beef, or a cracker, or peckerwood. Never in my life. So that shows that, I got a great deal of patience, discipline, and control. And we're on course for something spectacular. All we got to do is have the people's revolution. It's not all black. It's not all men. We're going to help you remember what you forgot. Much love, much respect. Thank you so much.
All right, Mandela Khan. All right, Dr. Kaba, you want to comment on what Mr. Mandela Khan had to say? Or I'll give you we got some other callers here. It's up to you. You're the guest here tonight.
Well, one of the things that I just want to stress and say again is some of the things that Brother Mandela Khan, if I'm pronouncing his name right, was saying. This is all an illusion that we're living. This is a system, a legal system that has gone out of the reign of humanity. And there are sets of laws that have been created that never existed in the history of the human family. And they put people in categories. This never existed before. And it's important that we understand the overall story and that this illusion that we're experiencing with these laws that are creating all of these illusions, it's over. The time is up on this. And the human family, and as you look at Congress and you look at people, you begin to realize that everybody's saying, if we are to move forward into the future, we're going to have to change the way in which this world is being structured right now. And it's going to change. It's changing as we speak. It's just that those individuals of goodwill, honesty and integrity, and morality. Because I was in a film titled Race War. And it had Jared Taylor, he called himself a white identist. And it had Richard Spencer, who is also, I don't know what he is, but he claims that white people are going to rule. But the problem that he said was, and it was something that I felt was very important, Mr. Gibson, that he said. And it was something that when Jared Taylor and I had our discussion after the premiere of the film, I told the audience that I would have liked to have said that something that I said or something that someone else said was the most important thing that was said. But the most important thing that was said in that film, Race War, was what Richard Spencer said. And he said bluntly in the film, white supremacy is not about morality. He said it's about winning. He said white supremacy views morality as weakness. And that the only way that white people can survive is by lying, cheating, stealing and tolerating those that do. And I think that's a very important thing for us all to understand. If we are to move forward as a family, as a human family, we better take reckoning. And if you really want to know what so-called good white people can do, you better put those beast white people in check, because they're the ones that's going to ruin the world for all of us, no matter what cultural background, ethnic stock we belong to. Because there is only one race on the planet, and that's the African race. And everybody comes from an African. So let's make it plain. Don't get it twisted.
What do you think about this? This is by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, actually. I got a quote here from him, and I'm going to read it, and then we'll take some more callers. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, when you live your life only for yourself, then you're already dead. You're just waiting for time to return you to the earth. But when you live your life to serve others, to make life better for others, to improve the condition of the world that we came into, that when we leave it in a better state. And those are the people whose names live. Though physically they are dead, they are honored down through our generations for the sacrifices that they made. Such men and women are those who are our ancestors in the struggle for liberation, since our fathers set the soles of their feet in the Western Hemisphere as slaves. Also among us were men and women who fought to make life better for the rest of us, always among the native people and those who gave their lives to improve the quality of life of their tribes, their nation, and their people. Today we remember Geronimo, we remember Sitting Bull, we remember Marcus Garvey, we remember Nat Turner, we remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we remember Malcolm X, we remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We remember all of those whose shoulders we stand today as we should. But now this is our time. We are yet alive, and Jesus said it best. I didn't come into the world to be ministered unto. I came into the world to be a minister to others. So he said, he who would be chief among you, let him be your servant. And that comes from Matthew 20, 23-20, Matthew 20, 23 to 28. And that's from Minister Louis Farrakhan, actually. That's one of his writings that I wanted to read to you. So like I said, I've done my research here. Who is your natural enemy here on Earth today? But I want to take some other callers. I wanted to read that because that was from Louis Farrakhan. That's one of his teachings and writings. And so we'll take some more callers here. And of course, I want the Dr. Kaba to wrap up the podcast here at the end. My co-host also first before Dr. Kaba, but I want Dr. Kaba to get the last words. But we'll take a couple more callers here that have been waiting. And like I said, my finger's on the hang-up button real fast. So next caller, you're unmuted.
Mr. Kaba? Mr. Kaba, do you speak Spanish?
Un poquito.
Un poquito, amigo. Okay. I'd like to say because I come from the Mexican descendants. And,
yes.
When the white people took over Aztlan, they brought a bunch of slaves and all that stuff. And I wanted to know, do you think we're in a better place today? Or do you think if the white people had never come, you think we would still be hunting for our food? We would still be hunting for buffalo, still be hunting for animals to eat? Because back in those days, the people used to hunt and all that stuff, and I wanted to know, do you think we would still do that if the European invaders wouldn't have come?
I studied in Mexico in the summer of 1984. And in my exposure to the civilization known as Olmeca, and understanding what actually existed in Mexico and in Central and South America. There were advanced civilizations existing when Europe and Europeans were eating raw meat in caves. And so it's important that we separate. Oh, yeah, there are some that hunt and gather. Quite frankly, you wouldn't go to the supermarket today if somebody wasn't hunting food and gathering. So hunting and gathering is still going on. It's a little different now than it was back then. But the bottom line is that the civilizations of the ancient world were very advanced. And the image that we have of the ancient civilizations, you know, the ancient civilizations coming up here to New York, and when you look at the Haudenosaunee, who are misnamed the Iroquois by the French, they ate with utensils. They had dishes. The artifacts have been found that they drank from vessels. They were highly civilized. The image that we are given of the ancient peoples is one that makes us want to thank the peoples of European descent for coming and giving us the civilization. Oh, no, that ain't how it happened. They came in contact with Africans. When they came in contact with peoples of indigenous American descent, when they came in contact with Indians, they then became what we call civilized. So it's important that we understand history and we understand how things happen. But to answer your question, I think that if Europeans had come with respect and dignity and morality, we'd all be far ahead right now. And so what I am asking the human family to do is to consider that and stop acting the way in which you're acting. Stop treating our brothers and sisters on the southern border that way. They are human beings. This planet belongs to all of us, wherever we find ourselves. We all belong to the human family. We all deserve respect and dignity. And Jesus, if you want to quote Jesus, it is Jesus that said, when you do it for the least of me, you do it for me. And so how we're treating our brothers and sisters who may not have what we have, that is how you're treating your Jesus. And don't ever forget that. How you treat the least of these is how you treat your God. And I don't think we're treating God right now pretty good down there in the southern border. And I don't have to go down to the southern border. I see it in New York. I see it in Chicago. I see it all around the world. So we better get ourselves together. Thank you for the call. Muchas gracias, mi hermano.
All right. A second question. Do you think we would our culture would have burritos, tacos, carne asada, and all that, you know, because in those days
I believe. I believe that the foods that we eat would have grown with who we are as a people. And if that's what we eat, that's what we eat. Enjoy it. Celebrate it. Celebración, fiesta.
Yeah, because
enjoy.
Because the Spaniards say that the Mexicans that we fart a lot, and that's not true, you know, because the beans came from our culture, you know, and we're known to do that, you know, and the Spanish people came and said that they gave us tortillas. I say no, because my Aunt Juanita used to do tortillas the mano on the pan, you know. What do you think about that?
You know something? Long live your aunt, your abuela, and everybody else in your family, brother. I wish you all very well. You know, what I believe that we need to do is be real clear with what we're talking about. We're all human beings, and we all deserve respect and dignity. We're all not going to be the sun that shines. There are some times in our life where we're going to be the moon, because the moon don't have shine. The moon has light from the sun. And sometimes we are the sun, and sometimes we are the moon. When you are the sun, which means when you are in power, be very careful. Shine on all. Because one day you're going to be the moon, and someone else is going to be the shine. And we're going to remember how you treated us when you were the sun, and now you're the moon.
Is that what?
Okay, all right, caller. I got to move on to another caller. I gave you your time there. I appreciate your call. Next private caller, go ahead, because what time permitting, of course. Go ahead, private caller.
Yeah, man. Much love, Dr. Kaba. You brought up something about saying we're all from Africa, and y'all, I don't know how old anyone is, but if y'all remember the movie Boys in the Hood, when at the beginning of the movie, young Trace, he's listening to his history teacher, and he brings up a good point. He says, "My daddy said we are from Africa," and then one of his little friends said, "I ain't no African booty scratcher," but he done whooped his ass with that ruler and said, because we are from Africa. You know what I'm saying? And but my favorite part about that movie is when Doughboy was going to go somewhere, and his mama yelled out at him and said, "Where you going, you fat fuck? You ain't got no job." That's a poor history lesson for me, But anyway, long story short, I think we are from Africa. Amen.
Okay. All right. Thank you, caller. And then I got Arshaveda here on the line. Arshaveda. I always pronounce her name wrong. I've got a female here, another female voice here who wants to call in. Go ahead, 251.
Greetings, Joe Gibson and Dr. Kaba, co-hosts, and all those who are listening. This is Ashita Veda. I'm calling from Mobile, Alabama. Greetings. And I greet you all with peace, love, and light. Hey, so I'm jumping on kind of late this evening, and I'm catching this late entry as far as basically the head becoming the tail and the tail becoming the head, and being careful how you treat those, and how you treat the least of these is how you treat your God or your Creator, the source. So a lot of times people will tell you, watch how a person treats their mother, and distinguish how they'll treat you, or how they treat their sisters and other women. This is how they'll treat you, or how people treat their father, basically vice versa. So I'm enjoying the conversation. Like I said, I just got on late. What I have to offer is the fact that we are in need of unity across the board, and this is sisterhoods and brotherhoods. We can't do it without the other, and just like was spoken, the sun and the moon, there's an interchanging between those two energies, and we have to be able to identify with both sources of energy, which comes from the sun and the moon. So that's why sometimes we up more so at night than we are during the day. We would rather be in the nighttime rather than in the daytime. We operate like that here in my household, and I just kind of let it go with the flow because I'm watching Mother Nature as we flow. But, so basically I stand with the Ethiopian matriarch and the rise of women and uplifting fallen humanity and empowerment and encouraging and promoting growth and development and community development as we learn to communicate effectively. And that's through the creation of our own language as we continue to team build for nation building. And so that's what it's all about. And I'm looking to network with those who are doing the work for the people, by the people. And I'm in the movement. And so, again, my name is Akshita Veda out of Mobile, Alabama. And we are the people, the republic in which we stand. And this is about Class Action 567 as we come into our proper administrations and authority as women, as sisters, as daughters of the matriarch, and rise, and therefore we can do what we came to do and make things right. So I thank you for your time. And
all
I'm
right,
still listening.
Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. I've got another caller here at 917, and of course I'm going to give Dr. Kaba, of course, ample time here to talk about his work and what he's done here at the end. So those people that are calling in late, and I want to give ample time here at the end of the show, and I appreciate him joining us here tonight. I wanted to say that, and spending his time with us here on Understanding the Times in which we live in today. So I'll take one more caller, and then I'll get to my co-host, and then Dr. Kaba can wrap things up here for us tonight. So 917, go ahead, 917.
This is Dr. Kent Hopper. How are you?
Do you have a question for the doctor here tonight? Please ask him a question or make a comment, please, quickly.
Okay. I wanted to ask Dr. Kaba a question. First of all, I am Canadian, and I wanted to ask you a politically correct question. If you call darker people in America African Americans, are we supposed to call the darks African Canadians in Canada?
I don't understand the question, but go ahead, Dr. Kaba. Go ahead. I don't know what this caller is trying to get at here, but go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, I think he said he's a comedian. Am I right there?
Yeah, and this isn't a comedian show, but go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. But well, I think that what he's saying is that if we are to call African Americans or something like that, should we call people of African descent in Canada African Canadians? Mm-hmm. For me, one of the most important things, first and foremost, to respond to that question, I don't tell people what they should respond to or whatever you call yourself. I will respond to that. I will respect how you view yourself. If you consider yourself a Canadian in Africa, or if you consider yourself an African Canadian, or if you are in Holland and you consider yourself an African person from Holland, whatever. It don't make me a difference. See, I don't get caught up in these things. We have to get real simple. Now, I understand we can get funny, and I understand that we can tell jokes, and I, for one, enjoy a good time, and I enjoy life.
Dr. Kaba.
But there's one thing that we have to
understand. No, he's answering your question, sir. Sir, let me mute that caller. Don't interrupt him.
Call whatever you want to call yourself. I believe you call yourself what you want to call yourself, and be happy with that. And if you want me to call you something, I'll call you that. That's your thing. I don't get caught up. But the one thing you have to understand is that you're a human being.
And Dr. Kaba, I do got a bunch of people on the phone line here tonight. So, look, don't take up too much time. If you got a quick question for Dr. Kaba, don't waste his time. If you've got a serious question or comment, ask him the question. Otherwise, I got to move on. Time permitting. We're running out of time here, and I want Dr. Kaba to have the closing thoughts to tonight's podcast. So 321, go ahead. Area code 321.
Hey, Dr. Kaba. I got a 1993 Ford F-150. Got 145,000 miles on it, and it runs great. I'm asking $1,500. Would you be interested in that?
Good for you. Good for you. Oh boy. We get a lot of winners on this podcast. Let me tell you.
Hey, listen. It's all right. Go with your car.
I tell you, and the phone line is lit up here tonight with these callers. It usually is, but we got Dr. Kaba on here, and we're trying to talk seriously here. So let me take one more private caller, and then I'm going to let my co-host here wrap up the show with Dr. Kaba. So let me take one more private caller. Go ahead, private caller. Do you have a question for Dr. Kaba?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kaba, and everybody for joining the show. I do have a question in reference to when you had mentioned about any human being should be able to go anywhere on the planet Earth. How does that reconcile the property rights? Is it okay for people to trespass on other people's property and just pick up what they want and claim it as their own? How do you handle that from the standpoint you were talking about? Thank you so very much for your insight.
Well, in terms of what I meant by that, more than anything else, is the fact that the earth belongs to us all. We are now divided up into countries, we're divided up into nations, we're divided up into continents, and we are all building fences around our property and saying, this is mine. When I've studied the ancient world, the ancient world did not view other human beings the way we view them now. We didn't see this as our property. This is how I know for a fact that indigenous people did not sell anything to anybody, because they, in their own spiritual dimensions, did not see themselves as possessors of the land. The land was their right to be able to do on the land what they had to do, but they were not the possessors of the land. So the idea of trespassing did not exist in the ancient world. If you came onto the land and did wrong things, that's a separate situation altogether. But what we're dealing with is a psychology, a philosophy of possessing things, an objectification of the beauty of what our Creator and what nature has done for us as a people. And it becomes a situation, okay, now we're in a situation where we do have laws, which are illusions, but they are laws. And in these laws, it says that this is my land and you cannot come on it. I am not saying in the world we're living in today, anybody can go anywhere and do anything at any point in time, because there's a different structure in place right now. And I understand that. And in my own way, I respect that. And so, of course, what we're dealing with is a whole new way of looking at the world. So I don't believe that anyone in today's world should venture to do that. But for people who are escaping hostility and pain, it is our duty as human beings, no matter what religion you belong to, no matter what party, political party you belong to, as one human being to know, if someone needs help, it is the human thing to do whatever we can in our own power. There are times in New York City, people come up, they may ask me, can I spare money? Sometimes I don't. But there are times I may have a piece of fruit. There are times I don't have anything that I could share, but at least I tell them, have a good day. I hope next time you see me, I got a little something I can give you. This is part of what we have to do as a human family, and we have lost that. And what we have to do is we have to regain ourselves as a human family, and we have to understand what we're facing. But until then, we are at war. It's unfortunate, but we are at war, and we got to understand that.
Is this a war of the flesh, or is it a spiritual war? Excuse me.
Mr. Gibson, I think this war is on all levels: mental, physical, spiritual, and soulful. But I believe that each and every one of us only has one enemy. There is only one enemy. And that enemy is the enemy within each and every one of us. That creates the negative, toxic energy within us. Everything outside of us is an obstacle. I don't see white people as my enemy. I see them, those who would wish to oppress me, I see them as an obstacle that needs to be gotten past. The enemy is that voice within me that's telling me I cannot succeed. And so the war that we have is first and foremost, the war is the war within each and every one of us. We are at war within ourselves. As a human family, we are destroying the very essence of who we are as a people. But that sounds one way, but the reality is that we have to be able to protect ourselves. Malcolm X told us, self-defense isn't violence. Self-defense is intelligence.
Okay. All right. Dr. Kaba, before I let you wrap up the podcast here, I got another caller, 909, that's been waiting a while here. 909, go ahead. Area code 909.
Yes. Hello, Joseph and Dr. Kaba. How are you today?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. My question to you, Dr. Kaba, is with if we have a mass amount of refugees coming here to the U.S. or to any country for that matter, or mass migration, in this case we have asylees or people who are claiming asylum and also entering illegally. Now, would you agree that when you have an influx of this mass amount of people that entering on a daily basis, that it would eventually change the culture of the country that they're entering to become basically what they had fled from? And I say this because recently, as July 12th, you had Mexican protesters that had taken down the American flag, written all over it, desecrated it, put it back up on the flagpole next to the Mexican flag. Now, you could say it's only a flag, but when they place a flag, they raise it up next to theirs and they raise it upside down. There is symbolism behind that for which countries have rules and policies. And in this case, when you could almost call it an invasion, and it's not necessarily from Mexico because they're coming from everywhere, Honduras and parts of Africa, and so it's not just Mexico that's has people coming here. South America countries are people are fleeing. So
Syria, China, everywhere. Yes, that's correct.
Mhm.
But those that are homeless and on the tax dole, too, they are a burden to us that have to pay taxes, and our fellow Americans are deprived of their representation and kicked out and sleeping in tents and under the bridge and under the cars, and they're on the tax roll, 80 million of them, and now we're flooding America with more people. How many homeless people are going to be, unrepresented and leave out in the cold?
Well, hang on. The caller had a question for Dr. Kaba, so she was making a comment and a question, so allow her to ask Dr. Kaba the direct question. Please, ma'am, go ahead.
And so when you have an influx of masses, we have been on a daily basis, and they're not assimilated to the culture, to the American culture or U.S. culture, whatever you want to call it. They, speaking the language, English language, and so forth. Would you say that could dramatically change the United States as a whole when we have this many, as many people as we do coming in on a daily basis? Whether or not they are fleeing from because they want a better life. Well, everybody wants a better life. There's, who doesn't? You would be stupid to say, no, I don't. I like living poor. And I don't mean that sarcastically, but that's the truth. So we can't rescue everybody. But let's say we did. Would America stop America?
Yeah, but let's think about this. Let's go back 500 years. Do you think that Native Americans didn't say that about Europeans?
Well, as far as the Native Americans or the Europeans that had they were here, they extended their reach, of course.
No, they didn't extend their reach. They were invaded. The Native Americans were invaded. Let's make it plain. Let's talk truth. Let's look at this for what it really is.
I'm not arguing. You're correct.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this happened. And 500 years ago, Europeans came here. They were escaping religious persecution. They were escaping poverty. They were ill. They had problems. They built a whole thing. And Sister Emma had a proverb that was wrapped around Ellis Island: "Give me your poor, you're rejected." And you could go through that. That's who was coming to America. And the reality of it is we all have to stop and ask ourselves certain questions and be real about what our responses are. Do you think, when you speak about the changing of culture, do you think Europeans changed Native American culture? Do you think that they superimposed their history on Native Americans, that they superimposed their language? When I hear people say, "This is America, speak English." No, English is a European language. It's not an American language. And so we have to stop and ask ourselves some very serious questions. Those of us who want to do something that is going to move us forward progressively as a human family. I'm talking to us. I'm not talking to the people that refuse to face the realities of what we're facing as a people today. People, do you know what Texas and New Mexico and Arizona look like 500 years ago? They look like the people who are at the southern border now. Those individuals were pushed south by peoples of European descent who now have Texas and Arizona and New Mexico. This is what you have. The indigenous peoples were there, and they were pushed down.
Hang on, Dr. Hang on, let me interject here between both of you. Hang on. We live in a time today, though. So how do we I think what the caller's trying to get at is, okay, America is America. We have borders. We have rules and regulations. We just can't live like the law of the jungle and let everyone live and let live and everyone go crazy and just allow everyone to go into any country they want and take the resources out of the country. So I think that's what maybe the caller is trying to get at here. So we have laws, we have the Constitution here in America.
But I understand. But I understand all that. But the bottom line is that it's like playing Monopoly and forbidding certain people to play Monopoly. And then the players that are playing it buy up everything. And the only thing that's left is go to jail. And then all of a sudden, after everything is bought up, you now say, okay, you can play. Well, you bought everything up. And so, no matter how you look at this, but 500,
bankers have done that.
But that may all well be true, but all of that are creations of the European structure. It is the creation of the Western structure. That's something that you will have to deal with.
So what's the answer? So Dr. Kaba, so what is the answer today? How do we today, as Americans, you're an American, I'm sure you respect the country you live in. You're obviously very well educated, very well spoken, and the last caller, I still got her on the line. But what do we do today to understand the times in which we live in today? How do we fix this problem? What do we do? We can't talk about what happened 1,000 years ago because we can all argue about that. We can't argue about slavery. What do we do to fix that today? We kick out all the Europeans from America and say, okay, all the Indians can have back their land. Okay,
what's
then
wrong
what?
with that?
So what do we do today as Americans to fix the problems that we're facing today as individuals, as families together, disregarding religion and whatnot, because we all have our own religious beliefs and whatnot. And that's why, Dr. Kaba, my show is usually about the Federal Reserve banking cartel, because I believe the money changers have a monopoly over us and they control us through the system that they've installed. And I agree with you. They're European stockholders, most of them, that control the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, the J.P. Morgans. They control everything that we see, we hear, and we buy today in America. How do we fix this together? Black, white, Spanish, Mexican, illegal immigrant. How do we fix this? Because we know our Republican and Democrats are misleaders. They're liars. They're criminals. We know that. How do we fix that? Because you're very well educated, what's the solution? What do we do as a human race together, black, white together? What do we do to fix what's happening today in America? And I would love to hear your answer on that question. What do we do? How do we move forward here?
You have to own.
Answer the question. You have to consider that 500 years ago, people used to live off the land. So if you migrated to a particular area, you could hunt for food or fish for food and feed your family and do okay until you got established. But now it's different. So when they come in across the border, what do we do?
How is it different? How is it different?
But ma'am, we're not 500 years ago. We can't hunt buffalo anymore to feed our family. We can't build a log cabin in the woods anymore. Because we have, like Dr. Kaba has said, legally, he talks about the legal sense of everything and the lawful things. And I believe Dr. Kaba knows about Magna Carta law and stuff like that. I believe he does. I would love to talk to him privately because I think he and I we should do another show together and talk about these types of things. But my question is, though, really is for Dr. Kaba is, how do we move forward today? We're obviously controlled by, yes, European banking cartels, the money changers, and we can argue about what happened 200 years ago, 500 years ago. We can argue about history. Was Abraham Lincoln black? Blah, blah, blah. That's all distraction. What do we do today? How do we move forward today as a people, as one human race together? Do we just open up the borders and say, hey, everyone can come in, and everyone, hey, let live, one love, and
they were
let's just all
already
get
here.
together?
I believe.
No.
They were already here. They were here before the Europeans came
Nobody
here.
was already here because we all originated from one place.
Here.
Like I said, we can't argue about history. We have to
Yeah,
address.
but
Hang on, co-host. Hang on. We have to address the problems today. How do we fix the problems today?
This is not their land to say who could come and who should go. They should go back to Europe then. Go back to Belgium. Go back to Germany. Go back to Ukraine.
So the Indians should go back to Mexico because that's where they came from.
They don't like to hear you can't come
to
a place that belongs to them.
And the Aztecs and everything. We can't argue about history. Who was originated here? All we can do.
That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
saying, why are they trying to come here?
That's not solving the problem of today.
They've been here.
Nobody's been here. Nobody's been anywhere. So we get back to the origin of who's our creator, and we're one human race. I want Dr. Kaba actually to give me his solution of what he thinks. Hang on, co-host. Hang on.
Who could come and who should go? He keeps saying that.
So neither does China. So China has no right to have anyone in their country. So if I want to go to China, because we're all one human race, if I want to go to China tomorrow, I should have the right to go to China, right? Because we're all one human race.
Can we agree to disagree?
We're not talking about that.
Can we
agree
agree
about Europeans coming
We
to
are
the
talking
Americas.
about that because we're one human race. That's what Dr. Kaba is saying.
Okay, but
so therefore we can't single out one group of people.
Dr. Kaba also said that too, and he also said that this is not their land.
This is ineffective communication at its best because no one understands what either of you are saying.
Exactly. What I'm saying is I want Dr. Kaba to close out the show here tonight.
Dr.
He was
Kaba
the guest.
did say that this is not their land. I don't know what you're
Well,
talking
that's
about.
what I'm saying. Let Dr. Kaba close out the podcast here tonight. All right, Dr. Kaba, obviously we got to the end of the platform here where everyone's jumping in here. But Dr. Kaba, you were the guest tonight, so I want you to just analyze the podcast here tonight and give your closing thoughts. Take as much time as you want, and we'll wrap it up with your final thoughts. Go ahead, Dr. Kaba, and thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you, co-host. I appreciate it, but let's let Dr. Kaba wrap up the show. Go ahead, Dr. Kaba.
You know, it's interesting. I think that we have to continue dialogue. I understand what's being said. What do we do today, 2019, with everything that's happened in the past? What do we do today? And the bottom line is that we have to analyze history and what has happened to understand what has brought us to this point where we are right now. We cannot forget what happened to El Salvador, to Central America, what certain security agencies did in Central and South America, the destabilizing of the countries that then allowed certain factions within the company or country to begin to do things that now they are creating very unsafe conditions for the indigenous peoples of these lands. We can't forget what they did, what governmental agencies did to these countries back that I remember in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. We cannot forget what happened to Patrice Lumumba in the Congo or to Kwame Nkrumah. These things were seeds that were planted in the past. And while I realize we're in 2019, what happens when the sins of the fathers and mothers revisit the children? And that's what we're in right now. We are in payback. This is payback. Mm-hmm. And so now we're trying to figure out, well, what do we do now? But the bottom line is that people of the Western world did very bad things to human beings. These human beings have grown, matured, and they are now in positions of power. And now they are doing things that they could not do before. And the Western world is declining, and the worlds of color are ascending. This is just reality that we're facing. The brown, the black, the yellow, whatever you want to say. The peoples of melanation are now rising. And now this is what we're facing. So the question becomes, what do we do now in 2019? I understand what happened in the past. I understand that. Reparations, the root word of reparations is to repair. We have to repair the hurt and the pain, the psychological dimensions that has happened. This country was not built by Europeans. This country was not built by immigrants from Europe. This country was built first and foremost by the wrongful stealing of the land from the people that were here. They then brought an entire group of people here from Africa to work the land for free and to build up the economic system of the Western world. This is what we're sitting on right now. And there is an ancient pain that exists among people that have been wrongfully treated. And this is the first thing that we have to face. We all have to face this. And my message to peoples of European descent is, if you want this to right the wrong, you better go in your communities and talk to these individuals who claim to be white identists, white realists, white supremacists, race, whatever you want to call them. You better talk to them, because there is something coming. And we better be ready for what's coming. I'd like to say all the nice things and say positive things, but I'm not facing that right now. I am facing groups of people that are very angry for what has happened to them. And they are going to do what is necessary, by any means necessary, to do what is necessary. And it's important that we understand this. You can't take someone's land, push them down south, and then when they want to come back home to their original land, you now say that you're going to create a gate or a border to keep them away. This was their land. This was not Europeans' land. If you go back 600 years, you were not here. And I'm speaking to peoples of European descent. And it's important that we understand this. So, Mr. Gibson, the first thing we have to do is we have to repair ourselves. We have to educate our children. We have to create an educational system that allows people to know who they are, their history, and their culture. They have to embrace an understanding, as you said, an American. Yes, I consider myself an American. I really do. I'm an African in America, but I understand the legal process. I believe that America, with all of its problems, is one of, if not the greatest nation on the planet right now. No matter how people may like what I'm saying, this is how I honestly feel. Because if I felt that America was not the greatest land, if I had that much problem with America, I would leave. I'm going to live, and I'll die in America. America is the land of my forefathers and my foremothers. They risked everything they had to make this land what it was. And just to tell you something else, the original inhabitants of America, the first wave of human beings that came to the American continent, were from Africa. They are called the Paleo-Americans. The second phase were the Clovis Folsom. They were Africans. The third were the Algonquins. They were Africans. The fourth were the Inuit. The Inuit, derogatorily called Eskimo, I don't like the word Eskimo, I like the word Inuit, were the ones that probably had been impacted by the Ice Age, and their melanin content was a little bit less than what the original people were. And then the fifth migration were the Asian migrations that were avoiding the Mongoloid invasions, and they are the ones that came down, and those five groups coming together were who the European called the red man, because there must have been a stark difference in complexion between the original people and the Europeans. It wasn't just a minor complexion difference, it had to be a major, because the first thing that Europeans did was call them red, and the first thing that the Native Americans called them was a pair. To have been a distinct difference in the melanation of these people. And we have to understand the first human beings that came across the planet with the original African family known as the Twa people or the Mbuti people, or who we derogatorily call the Pygmy. So that we have to face history and what we've done. We have to make up for the hurt and the pain that has been caused by Europeans invading the earth about 500 years ago after Africans had gone into Europe and civilized them, known as the Moors. There is a history that we have to face, Mr. Gibson. There's a history that all of us have to face. Whether we like it or not, we're going to face it, and we're going to do something about it. And those who are of good intent, of real spirit, are going to deal with the money changes. You're going to deal with the illusion of money. We're going to do this. I'd just like to tell you, go to my website, www.kabakamene.com, KABAKAMENE.com. Put your email in, and I will send you my free 5-day e-course and my study guide that deals with some of the work that we're doing in terms of education, educating our children. I have taught college. I have taught children of European descent who have told me that some of the things that they have learned have freed them of the pain that they have felt within their own community. They knew something wasn't right. They just didn't know what it was. But once they studied it, they understood, and they said, yes, I think I want a future for all of us. Because if we're all going to survive, we better put all of the different feelings that we have aside if we're all going to survive. Because I believe that this type of conversation that we're having, as lively as it was and as challenging as it was, is exactly what we have to have, as long as you said, Mr. Gibson, that we respect each other when we talk to each other. No matter how you may disagree, it's all right. And let me just stop right here and tell you this. I tell people this all the time. Don't believe a word I say. I believe the most effective educator doesn't say what he or she says to convince people or to make you believe me. I don't care if you believe me. I'm not here for you to believe me. I am simply here to make you think. I don't want to get you out the box, because if I'm trying to get you out the box, it means that some folk are still in the box. I want you to understand that the box is an illusion. There is no box. We're all flat-footed on the earth looking at each other. And let's look at each other and respect each other and deal with the issues. Because we have some difficult days ahead. We got some stuff we're going to deal with, but that's all part of life. So just put your seatbelt on and get ready for the trip. It ain't over till we win.
To say something.
All right, Dr. Kaba, I got to wrap up the podcast here. I'd like to have you back in the future. I've got your phone number. I'll communicate with my co-host, of course. I'm sure you and I can have long, in-depth conversations together.
Oh, I can see we can. Oh yeah.
Dr. Kaba,
I want to thank everyone that did. I want to thank everyone that did call in tonight and spent the time with us here, understanding the times in which we live in today. I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Dr. Kaba. Hey, he spent 2 hours plus with us here tonight, and he's pretty powerful. Very, very powerful. Very emotional in what he has to say, and like he said, don't believe what he has to say. You know, do your own research. Do it. And I want to thank all the callers that called in here tonight. Thank you so much. And for our next show, follow me on Blog Talk Radio, and I'll have Dr. Kaba back on again. I promise I will. And I'll bring some pastors on and get some theology professors on. That would be a challenging discussion, but we have to talk to each other in a civil manner because we're all in this game together. You know, so I got to wrap up the podcast. I really do. But Dr. Kaba, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, my co-host. I appreciate it. Archiveda, thank you. Not your code 909. Thank you so much for calling in. I don't recognize your voice. Maybe you're a first-time caller. I don't know. But I do appreciate you. I appreciate your question for Dr. Kaba. I appreciate Mandela Khan, as always. I appreciate everybody. Hey, like Dr. Kaba did say, you know, this is what it's all about. You know, you're not going to hear something like this on Fox News or CNN, you know. So archive this show. I hope it was educational. I hope we uplifted a lot of people and made them think. Very important. So, hey, take care, everybody, and join us on our next show. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Goodbye. Justice Gibson, you rock.